He didn't stalk his victims. He didn't even know their names. Israel Keyes buried kill kits, plastic buckets stuffed with guns, ropes, knives, and shovels, years in advance, hidden in the frozen earth of America's forgotten forests, waiting like traps for a predator who planned death with the patience of a hunter. Then he'd board a plane, cross the country, and dig them up, his footsteps silent on snow-dusted trails, his eyes scanning for anyone, who crossed his path at the wrong moment. This wasn't a man driven by rage, obsession, or twisted desire. This was a strategist of death, a phantom who turned the vast, sprawling United States into his personal killing ground, who saw strangers not as people, but as pawns in a game only he understood. Israel Keyes wasn't just a serial killer. He was a cold, calculating force, orchestrating murder with the precision of a military campaign, leaving no trace, no motive, no shred of humanity behind. His crimes didn't scream for attention. They whispered, chilling the air in quiet towns from the icy shores of Alaska to the rolling hills of Vermont. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear might make you question how safe your quiet town really is, how close you've come to shadow like Keyes without ever knowing, how thin the line is between safety and the abyss. Israel Keyes could have been anyone you pass on the street without a second glance. A clean-cut man in his 30s with a soft, disarming smile, a steady job as a contractor, and a young daughter he raised with care in Anchorage, Alaska. He'd wave from his driveway, his pickup truck gleaming in the sun, or make small talk at the local hardware store about fishing lures or the best snow tires, his voice calm, his dark eyes unremarkable, his presence as ordinary as the gray Alaskan sky. Neighbors described him as polite, maybe a touch reserved, the kind of guy who'd help shovel your walk after a blizzard or lend you a tool without hesitation. They trusted him, invited him to barbecues, left their kids with him when they ran errands. But beneath that unassuming exterior was a man who roamed the United States for over a decade, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake, slipping through the cracks of a system that never saw him coming. No criminal record before his arrest. No speeding tickets, no bar fights, no red flags to warn the world of the darkness coiled inside him. Just a shadow moving through crowded airports, small-town gas stations, and desolate backroads, his duffel bag packed with the tools of death, latex gloves, zip ties, a silenced pistol, a folded map marked with secrets only he knew. From 2001 to 2012, Keyes crisscrossed the country, logging tens of thousands of miles, his movements as erratic as the wind, his crimes buried in the silence of rural America's vast, indifferent landscapes. He could be in your town one day, buying coffee at a diner, his rental car idling outside, and gone the next, leaving nothing behind but a family's unanswered questions. He was invisible, not because he was a genius, but because he was painfully ordinary, terrifyingly patient, and ruthlessly deliberate. A man who understood that the best disguise is to be forgettable. How does a killer blend so seamlessly into the world, shaking hands while planning murders? What kind of mind treats death like a side job, compartmentalized with the ease of a routine commute? How long was he watching, waiting, planning, before the world caught a glimpse of the monster he hid so well? And what does it mean that someone so unremarkable could carry such unspeakable horror in his heart? Picture a plastic Home Depot bucket, orange and unassuming, buried 2 feet deep under a gnarled oak tree in a state park, its lid sealed tight against rain, snow, and time. Inside, a chilling inventory, a 9mm handgun with a silencer, a roll of duct tape, heavy-duty zip ties, a folding knife with a serrated edge, latex gloves, a black ski mask, a compact shovel, a bottle of Drano to dissolve flesh and bone, even a pair of cheap reading glasses to alter his appearance. This was Israel Key's signature. Not a gruesome crime scene or a taunting letter to the press, but a kill kit, his pre-planted arsenal of murder, hidden years before he'd ever need it. A testament to his patience, his foresight, his obsession with control. He buried dozens of these kits across the United States, from the misty trails of Vermont's Green Mountains to the rugged forests of New York's Adirondacks, from Washington's Olympic Peninsula to the sun-scorched plains of Texas. Each one a seed of chaos, a promise of death waiting for him to return, like a hunter checking a trapline. He'd fly into a city, Chicago, Seattle, Dallas, rent a nondescript sedan, drive hours to a remote trailhead or an overgrown lot, dig up his kit under the cover of darkness. The only sound is steady breathing and the scrape of metal on dirt. Then he'd hunt, choosing victims at random, their lives snuffed out with cold, surgical precision. A jogger on a lonely path, a couple in a parked car by a lake, a clerk locking up a gas station after midnight. They weren't chosen for who they were, but for where they were, for being in the wrong place at the exact moment Keyes decided to strike. After the kill, he'd clean the scene with chemical precision, sink the body in a river or bury it in a shallow grave, then rebury the kit or dump it in a lake, its contents erased from the world. He'd be on a flight home before the missing person report was filed, his hands clean, his alibi airtight, his daughter's bedtime story waiting. Keyes once told the FBI he buried a kid in upstate New York in 2008 and didn't touch it until 2011, waiting 3 years to strike. His patience a weapon as deadly as the gun inside. These kits weren't just tools. They were proof of his mastery, his ability to orchestrate chaos and walk away untouched, to plant death in the earth and let it lie dormant until he was ready. A 2012 FBI report noted 2 recovered kits, one in Eagle River, Alaska, another in Parishville, New York, but Keyes hinted at dozens more, their locations locked in his mind, their contents rusting in the wilderness. How do you catch a killer who prepares for murder like a survivalist, who controls every detail but leaves the victim to chance, who sees death as a project to be managed with spreadsheets and timelines? What kind of patience lets a man bury a bucket of death in a forest, walk away, and wait years to return, knowing exactly what he'll do when he does? How many of those kits are still out there, hidden under trees, their purpose unfulfilled, their secrets buried deeper than the graves they were meant to create? February 1st, 2012. Anchorage, Alaska. It's a bitter winter night, the temperature plunging below zero, the kind of cold that stings your lungs and empties the streets by dusk. Samantha Koenig, an 18-year-old barista with a bright smile, a quick laugh, and dreams of escaping her small town for something bigger, is closing up the Common Grounds coffee kiosk, a tiny booth glowing like a lantern in the snowy dark. She's wiping down counters, counting her tips, maybe $10 in crumpled ones, humming to a song on her phone, unaware that a man is watching from the shadows, his breath fogging in the frigid air. Israel Keyes approaches, his boots crunching softly on the snow, his face half hidden by a scarf. He orders an Americano, his voice polite, his hand steady as he hands over exact change. As Samantha passes the cup through the window, he pulls a silenced handgun, his eyes cold, his movements swift, practiced, as if he's done this 100 times. He orders her to turn off the lights, zip ties her wrists behind her back, and forces her out of the kiosk, into his pickup truck parked just out of sight, its engine idling, its plate stolen from another state. What follows is a chilling display of control, a crime so calculated it feels like a script he'd rehearsed in his mind for years, every step choreographed, every variable accounted for. Keyes didn't kill Samantha right away. He drove her to a shed behind his Anchorage home, a ramshackle workshop cluttered with tools and tarps, We kept her captive, bound and gagged, while his young daughter slept inside the house, oblivious to the horror unfolding yards away. He ended Samantha's life there, in that cold, dark shed, but his plan didn't stop with her death. It grew darker, more audacious, more depraved. For weeks, he kept her body in the shed, preserved by the sub-zero Alaskan winter, as he went about his life, pouring concrete at a construction site, taking his daughter to school, planning a Caribbean cruise with his girlfriend. Then, in a move that stunned even seasoned FBI agents, he staged a photo. He thawed Samantha's body, applied makeup to her pale face, sewed her eyelids open with fishing line to mimic life, and posed her sitting up, holding a February 13th Anchorage Daily News, creating a fake proof-of-life image. He sent the photo to her family via text from a burner phone, demanding a $30,000 ransom, depositing their desperate payments into her debit card, knowing she'd never come home. He dismembered her remains with a hacksaw, drove to Matanuska Lake, cut a hole in the ice with a chainsaw, and dumped her body into the freezing depths, weighted with cinder blocks to ensure it wouldn't surface. Then he flew to Houston, Texas, rented a car, drove to New Orleans, and boarded a cruise ship with his girlfriend, sipping piña coladas in the Gulf of Mexico, as if the world hadn't just lost a light. But this time, Keyes made mistakes, using Samantha's debit card at ATMs in Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico, withdrawing cash under the grainy gaze of surveillance cameras, leaving a digital trail that finally gave the FBI something to chase. It was the first crack in his armor, the murder that exposed a killer who'd operated in the shadows for over a decade, a rare misstep in a career of flawless execution. Why did a man so meticulous, so disciplined, slip up with Samantha Koenig, leaving breadcrumbs after years of vanishing like smoke? Was it arrogance, a belief he was untouchable after outsmarting the system so long? Or was something darker stirring inside him, a need to push the boundaries of his control, to test the limits of his own invincibility? And what does it say that even his mistakes were calculated? A ransom plot that profited from a family's hope. March 13th, 2012. Lufkin, Texas. A white Ford Focus, rental car with Arizona plates, cruises down a quiet highway under a wide, cloudless sky. Israel Keyes is behind the wheel, unaware that Texas Rangers and FBI agents are tailing him, their radios crackling with updates. They'd been tracking the use of Samantha Koenig's stolen debit card, watching it paying ATMs across the Southwest, expecting a petty thief or a drifter, not a predator whose crimes would rewrite their understanding of evil. When they pull him over, Keyes is calm, almost polite, his voice steady as he hands over a fake ID, his hands resting casually on the steering wheel, no twitch, no sweat, no sign of panic. Agents search the car, find Samantha's debit card tucked in his wallet, and cuff him, still expecting a small-time crook. But in a Lufkin field office, as they question him, Keyes' facade begins to shift, not with fear, but with control. He sits across from investigators, his posture relaxed, his dark eyes unblinking, his face a mask of quiet confidence. "I've killed before," he says, pausing to let the words land like stones in still water, his lips curling into a faint, unsettling smirk. "A lot." Over the next 9 months, in a series of interrogations at Anchorage's FBI field office, Keyes offered glimpses into his world, but always on his terms, a chess player moving pieces while his opponents scrambled. He admitted to Samantha's murder, described it with the detachment of a man recounting a grocery run, where he parked, how he tied her up, when he pulled the trigger, the exact angle of the shot. He hinted at other killings, dropping names like Bill and Lorraine Currier, a Vermont couple abducted in 2011, but refused to give full details unless the FBI met his demands. No death penalty, no media circus, No pain for his daughter, who he claimed was his only tether to humanity. He spoke of his crimes like a craftsman discussing a project. No remorse, no emotion, just a quiet pride in his precision, his ability to outsmart a system designed to catch men like him. "You'll never find them all," he told Special Agent Catherine Nelson, leaning back at his chair, his voice flat but taunting, his eyes locked on hers, as if daring her to push harder. He gave just enough to keep investigators hooked. Locations of 2 kill kits, vague references to bodies in lakes or forests, but held back the full scope, toying with the FBI like a cat batting a wounded mouse, always one step ahead, even in chains. Agents described him as unnerving, not for his confessions, but for his silences, long pauses where he'd stare at the table, the wall, the air, as if listening to something only he could hear. A 2012 FBI memo noted his complete lack of effect, calling him a rare breed, a killer who enjoys the process, not the outcome, who kills for the plan, not the person. Audio from a June 2012 interrogation captures his voice, low, measured, almost soothing, as he describes disposing of a body. It's not hard if you know the right spot. Water's deep, current strong. No one looks twice. How does a man confess to murder with such cold indifference, as if lives were just tasks crossed off a list? What was he hiding in those silences, those half-told stories, those moments when his smirk betrayed a secret he'd never share? Why did he play this game with the FBI, feeding them crumbs while keeping the feast to himself? And what does it mean that even in custody, he held the power, his secret's a weapon he wielded until the end? Israel Keyes didn't hunt in one city, one state, or one corner of the world. He hunted everywhere, turning the United States into his personal killing field, a vast, sprawling canvas where he could strike and vanish like a ghost in the fog. From 2001 to 2012, he logged tens of thousands of miles, his movements a dizzying, unpredictable web of flights, drives, and disappearances that spanned the continent. He'd fly from Anchorage to Chicago's O'Hare, rent a silver Hyundai Sonata, drive 800 miles to a small town in Vermont, kill, then catch a red-eye to Seattle for a construction job, his co-workers chatting about football while he nodded along, his mind elsewhere. One week he'd be in Texas, scoping out a rural gas station under a blazing sun. The next in Maine, hiking a foggy trail where a jogger might cross his path. He took a ferry to Vancouver, rented a fishing boat in Louisiana's bayous, drove the winding backroads of Wyoming's Bighorn Mountains, always moving, always planning, always one step ahead of a world that didn't know to look for him. He slept in forests, pitching a tent in state parks, or in campgrounds with cash-only sites, or curled up in the back seat of his rental car, parked in an abandoned lot. He avoided motels with security cameras, front desk clerks, or Wi-Fi that could track a login. He could murder in Washington's Cascade Mountains, dump a body in an Idaho river, sink evidence in a New York lake, and be back in Anchorage for his daughter's soccer game, reading her a bedtime story with the same hands that ended a life days before. His victims had no connection, no shared age, race, gender, occupation, or lifestyle, no pattern to link them, no reason to be chosen except their proximity to one of his kill kits or a fleeting moment of vulnerability. A couple camping in a state park, their campfire flickering in the dark. A woman walking her dog on a suburban street, her headphones drowning out his approach. A man fixing a flat tire on a deserted highway, his hazard lights blinking in vain. They were targets of opportunity, their lives erased with surgical efficiency, their stories swallowed by the vastness of America's wild places. This randomness was Key's greatest weapon, baffling law enforcement agencies built to find motives, signatures, or geographic clusters. He didn't leave any. his crimes scattered like ashes across a dozen states, their only link a man who refused to be predictable. FBI case files from 2012, released after his death, show his travel records: over 70 domestic flights, 30 car rentals, bus tickets from Greyhound stations in 15 cities. Yet most of his trips remain unlinked to specific crimes, their purpose locked in his mind, their outcomes buried in unmarked graves. A 2013 report from the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, noted unexplained disappearances in areas Keyes visited: Wyoming in 2007, California in 2009, New Hampshire in 2010, but without bodies, evidence, or witnesses. They're just shadows of his work. How do you track a killer who uses America's vastness as a shield? Who turns its open roads, its endless skies, its quiet towns into tools of terror? What kind of mind sees a country not as a home, not as a community, but as a map of opportunities to kill, with no one to notice, no one to care? How many times did he pass through your town unnoticed, his eyes scanning the diner, the park, the gas station, for the next chance to prove his power? And what does it say that a man could move so freely, so invisibly, in a world that prides itself on watching? Most serial killers betray themselves with a pattern, a ritual carved into their crime scenes, a trophy hidden in a shoebox, a signature that screams for attention, that begs to be caught. Israel Keyes left nothing, his crimes as clean as a surgical cut, his method a masterclass in evasion that left even the FBI's top profilers grasping at air. He wasn't a narcissist craving headlines like Ted Bundy, posing for cameras with a charming grin. He wasn't a compulsive predator like Jeffrey Dahmer, driven by dark, uncontrollable urges that left a trail of sloppy mistakes. Keyes was a process killer, obsessed with the act of planning, the thrill of executing a flawless operation, the power of vanishing without a trace, leaving the world to wonder if the crime even happened. He studied true crime books, John Douglas Mindhunter, and Rules the Stranger Beside Me, Robert Keppel's signature killers, not for inspiration, but for strategy, learning how investigators think, how they build profiles, how they fail. He pored over FBI profiling manuals, declassified case files, even binge-watched forensic shows like CSI and Law and Order, not for entertainment, but to reverse engineer their techniques, to anticipate their moves, to stay 3 steps ahead. He paid cash for everything: plane tickets bought at airport counters, car rentals from off-brand agencies, diner meals left with exact change, avoiding credit cards, ATMs, or cell phones that could leave a digital footprint. He disabled GPS trackers in rental cars, swapped license plates with ones stolen from junkyards, wore disguises, wigs, fake beards, colored contacts, even prosthetics, to blur his image on the rare security camera that caught him. He used library computers with guest logins, burner phones he'd smash after one call, disposable email accounts created in internet cafes. Unlike killers who sought fame, sexual gratification, or emotional release, Keyes killed for control, for the quiet satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed, for the knowledge that he'd outsmarted a system designed to catch men far less careful. He told the FBI in a July 2012 interrogation, I didn't care who they were. They were just there, in the way of what I wanted to do. The point was doing it right. Psychologists describe him as a pure sociopath, devoid of empathy, driven by a need to dominate, not through violence, but through intellect, through the chess game of murder, where he was the only player who knew the rules. His lack of a signature was his signature, his randomness his method, his discipline his edge. A 2012 FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit report called him a unicorn, a killer with no ego, no compulsion, just strategy, A man who could stop killing tomorrow, and no one would know he ever started. He wasn't driven by the need to relive his crimes, to collect mementos, or to taunt police with riddles. He didn't need to. His thrill was in the planning, the execution, the escape, the silence that followed. How do you stop a man who's studied your playbook, who's turned your own tools, your databases, your profiles, your assumptions against you? What makes a killer who doesn't need fame, passion, or even a reason? Only the quiet thrill of being untouchable, of knowing he's won before you even know you're playing. How many others like him are out there, reading the same books, watching the same shows, learning from his blueprint, perfecting their own? And what does it mean that Keyes, a man with no apparent trauma, no dramatic origin story, could become this, as if evil were just a choice he made one day? Israel Keyes didn't just kill. He operated by a strict, self-imposed code, a set of rules that kept him untouchable for over a decade, rules that turned murder into a science, a discipline, a cold, calculated equation where every variable was controlled. Rule 1. Never kill near home. He lived in Anchorage, Alaska, a city he kept pristine, a sanctuary for his daughter and his double life, hunting thousands of miles away. In Vermont's quiet villages, Texas' sprawling deserts, Washington's rain-soaked forests, ensuring no local police would ever glance his way. No neighbor would ever wonder why he was gone. Rule 2. Never take the victim's belongings. No phones, no wallets, no jewelry, nothing that could be traced or tempt him to linger. He'd burn their IDs in a campfire, sink their cars in rivers or swamps, crush their phones under his boot, erasing their existence as thoroughly as he ended their lives. Rule 3. Operate on a timer. From the moment he landed at an airport to the moment he disappeared, he gave himself 48 hours, maximum. No lingering, no loose ends, no time for a witness to memorize his face or a camera to catch his rental car's plate. He'd scout a town for a day, driving its back roads, noting its rhythms, when bars closed, when trails emptied, when streetlights flickered on, then pick a victim based on opportunity. A hiker alone on a secluded path, a clerk locking up a store after midnight, a couple in a dark parking lot by a shuttered strip mall. Rule 4. Vary the method. He strangled with his hands, shot with silenced pistols, stabbed with hunting knives, even bludgeoned with rocks or pipes, never repeating a technique in a way that could link crimes across jurisdictions. He used his kill kits to minimize variables, chose isolated locations, remote trails, abandoned lots, forested riverbanks. To avoid interruptions, disposed of evidence with chemical cleaners like bleach or Drano, or by sinking it in deep water where currents would carry it away. Rule 5. Leave no witnesses. If someone saw him, even briefly, he'd pivot, abort the plan, move to another town, another target, his discipline overriding impulse. He once told the FBI, "If you plan it right, it's like they never existed. No one looks for what isn't there." His rules weren't just about evasion. They were about perfection, about proving he could control every aspect of a chaotic, unpredictable act, about leaving the world none the wiser, as if the victim had simply dissolved into the night. A 2012 interrogation transcript quotes him describing a kill. "You picked the right spot, the right time. It's over in minutes. Then you're gone, and it's like you were never there." Another rule, unspoken but evident: never get personal. He didn't talk to his victims, didn't taunt them, didn't need their fear or their stories. They were objects, means to an end, pieces in his game of control. Why would a killer impose such rigid discipline on himself, turning murder into a ritual of restraint, a checklist as cold as the tools in his kits? What drove him to treat each kill like a military operation, with rules as unyielding as the graves he left behind, each one a testament to his ability to outthink, outmaneuver, outlast. What does it say about a man whose greatest thrill wasn't the act of killing, but the silence that followed, the knowledge that he'd won again, that the world would never know? And how do you fight a predator who's made discipline his deadliest weapon? December 2nd, 2012. Anchorage Correctional Complex. Israel Keys is found dead in his cell, his wrist slashed with a smuggled razor blade hidden in a pencil, his neck choked with a knotted bedsheet, his blood pooling on the cold concrete floor, soaking into the thin mattress beneath him. At 34, he ended his life with the same cold efficiency he used to end others, doubling up, cutting and strangling, to ensure no chance of revival, no last-second rescue, no possibility of facing a trial that might expose his full legacy. He left behind a final, chilling taunt. On his cell wall, scrawled in his own blood, were 11 crude skulls, their empty eyes dripping red, their jagged mouths a silent scream, a cryptic tally of death that mocked the investigators who'd spent months trying to crack his secrets. Under his mattress, they found a note, part poem, part manifesto, 8 pages of handwritten scrawl filled with cryptic lines. No one to hear you, no one to care. The stars are cold, and so am I. You'll chase shadows while I'm dust. It named no victims, offered no closure, only hints at the scale of his crimes, a riddle wrapped in defiance. Keys confessed to at least 8 murders, including Samantha Koenig in Alaska and Bill and Lorraine Currier, a Vermont couple abducted from their Essex home in June 2011. Their bodies never found, likely burned or sunk in a landfill. But he hinted at dozens more, possibly up to 36, across 10 states, from California's Central Valley to New Hampshire's White Mountains. He spoke vaguely of a man in Wyoming in 2007, a woman in Texas in 2009, a couple in Washington in 2010, their names withheld, their fates locked in his mind, their stories ending in shallow graves, deep lakes, or incinerators that left no trace. The FBI believes his victim count could rival some of America's most prolific killers, Ted Bundy's 30, John Wayne Gacy's 33. But his random selection of victims, strangers with no connection to him or each other, and his meticulous disposal methods make most cases unsolvable. Bodies remain missing, buried under forest floors, sunk in rivers with swift currents, or burned to ash in barrels he'd later crush. Families wait for answers, clinging to faded missing person flyers, their loved ones reduced to cold cases and dusty files. Kill kits remain hidden, their locations a secret he took to his grave, their contents, guns, ropes, knives, rusting in the earth, waiting for a purpose that died with him. A 2013 FBI report estimates at least 5 unrecovered kits in the U.S., possibly more, buried in state parks, national forests, or rural lots no one's thought to search. In 2014, agents found a cache in Alaska's Chugach State Park. Duct tape, a .45 pistol, a stained shovel, but no bodies nearby, no clues to its use. Those 11 skulls on his wall were the account of his confirmed kills, a plan for future murders, or just a final game to torment the FBI, to ensure his shadow lingered long after his pulse stopped? Why did Keys choose to silence himself, to rob the world of the truth he'd only begun to reveal, to take his secrets to the grave rather than face the consequences of his crimes? How many lives did he end? How many graves did he dig? How many families did he shatter, their stories buried in the vast, indifferent landscape he called his playground? And what does it mean that his death didn't end the nightmare, but froze it, leaving us with questions that echo in the dark, with horrors that may never be uncovered? Israel Keys didn't need rage to kill. He didn't need a motive, a grudge, a trauma, or a twisted fantasy to drive him. He just needed a map, a plane ticket, a bucket buried in the woods, and time. Time to plan, to wait, to strike, to vanish. He was the stranger at the gas station, pumping fuel into a rented sedan, his eyes scanning the lot for a lone traveler. The man in the airport terminal, reading a newspaper, his duffel bag at his feet, its contents heavier than clothes. The hiker on a trail, nodding as you passed, his smile as empty as the forest behind him, his hand steady, his mind already 3 moves ahead. His crimes weren't about passion, revenge, or even pleasure. They were about power, about proving he could outsmart the world, about leaving nothing behind but the fear that lingers in the silence of a missing person's name, the dread that creeps into a quiet town when someone doesn't come home. Keyes showed us that evil doesn't need a face, a reason, or a pattern. It can be anywhere, anyone, anytime. Hiding in the ordinary, the unremarkable, the man who looks like he belongs, who shakes your hand, who waves from his porch, who carries death in his pocket like loose change. The FBI still hunts his kill kits, digging in state parks from Washington to New York, dragging lakes in Vermont and Idaho, chasing tips from a trail gone cold over a decade ago. They still search for his victims, matching DNA from unidentified remains, sifting through missing person reports from 2001 to 2012, hoping to give closure to families who've waited years, their hope fading with each unanswered call. They still wonder how many he took, how many stories ended on a lonely road, in a dark shed, under a killer's cold, unblinking gaze, their names forgotten, their lives erased by a man who saw them as nothing more than a means to an end. Keyes' death didn't end the nightmare. It froze it, leaving us with a shadow that stretches across America's highways, its forests, its small towns. A shadow that whispers of secrets still buried, of buckets still waiting, of lives still unaccounted for. So, how many of those kill kits are still out there, hidden under gnarled trees, tucked in the shadows of America's wild places, their contents rusting, their purpose unfulfilled, their existence a reminder that Keyes' work may not be done? What do you think? How did Keyes stay hidden for so long, blending into a world that never suspected him, moving through our lives like a ghost? Could someone like him be out there right now, planning, watching, waiting in the quiet of a town just like yours, their own rules written, their own kits buried? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one, and we want to know what this journey into Keyes' darkness stirred in you, what it made you fear, what it made you question about the world around you. If Israel Keyes' chilling precision left you uneasy, questioning the safety of the ordinary, the reliability of the familiar, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for more true crime deep dives that pull you into the shadows, that challenge you to see the world through a lens of terror, that refuse to let you look away. Check out our deep dives on Ted Bundy, whose charm hid a monster that stalked a generation, the Zodiac Killer, whose ciphers still mock us from the grave, or Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, whose quiet life masked a riverbed of bodies, for more stories that haunt, that unsettle, that remind us to look twice at the stranger next door. Share this with your true crime community. Spark a debate. Keep the victim stories alive, because Samantha Koenig, Bill and Lorraine Currier, and the countless unnamed others deserve to be remembered. Their lives stolen by a man who saw them as nothing, their stories drowned in the silence he left behind. Thanks for watching. Stay curious and stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next one, where we chase another shadow, another truth, another killer who might be closer than you think.